all across America and around the world. This is Veterans Radio. This is Veterans Radio.
Good day. I'm Jim Fossone. I'm the officer of the deck today here on Veterans Radio, and thanks for joining us. We've got some interesting stories for you. We always want to remind you you can find more about Veterans Radio at its Facebook site or at the web, veteransradio.org, where we're on the web 24/7. You can find a lot of our podcasts there as well. We post new ones every Tuesday, so you can get a new story, a new interview, something you didn't know before by going to veteransradio.org. And before we get started, we want to thank our sponsors. First up, we want to thank Legal Help for Veterans. Legal Help for Veterans fights for veterans' disability rights all across the nation. You can reach them at 800-693-4800 or on the web at legalhelpforveterans.com. We just want to remind you that Veterans Radio podcasts are available on all your favorite streaming platforms, including RSS.com, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube Podcasts, iHeartRadio, and Rees Across America Radio. So wherever you are, you can find us, whether it's on your mobile phone or your computer or your laptop, your tablet. But listen in to Veterans Radio Podcasts. We post something new every week, and you're going to find it informative. We've got two great stories to tell you today. One is about a Medal of Honor recipient, Don Ballard, for what he did back in Vietnam. He received the Medal of Honor from President Nixon in 1970. He was a Navy Hospital Corpsman in Vietnam, and when he was out repeatedly exposing himself to enemy fire to treat wounded Marines, a grenade was thrown into the location where he was, and he instinctively grabbed it and was willing to sacrifice his own life to protect those he was treating medically. As he did it and hurled it away, it turned out the grenade was a dud. So lived to tell the story, and this is going to be his story. We want to welcome to Veterans Radio today a Medal of Honor recipient, Donald Ballard from Missouri. Don, welcome to Veterans Radio.
Well, thank you for having me.
Well, this is a great story and a great life. I always like it when we have a live to talk about it Valor action. They aren't always that way. But how did a nice kid like you, who grew up in Kansas City, Missouri, who wanted to become a dentist, how'd you end up in the Navy?
Well, that was, I'll try to make a short story out of a long one. I ran out of tuition money. And so I joined for financial and tuition assistance.
Many people do. Education, needing education, wanting education, and a way to get there drives a lot of folks to the military. I always get a kick out of you guys from the middle of the country who end up in the Navy. There's not an ocean around. Why the Navy?
Well, I don't know. I joined because I went to the Marine Corps recruiter's office, and they said, "We don't have no stinking dentist. Go across the hall." So I walked across the hall, and it was the Navy. Of course, they directed me to their partner. You know, the Navy and the Marines are partners.
Right.
Yeah. So I could have gone in the Air Force if I went to the other building, or Army. You know, they were in another building. That's how I ended up in the Navy. I walked in that Navy office, and they said, "You want to be a dentist? We just got a quota." You wouldn't believe it. We just learned that we have a slot available. Well, I still got the hook in my mouth.
Oh, yeah. You took the sinker, the hook, line, and sinker, the whole thing. And this is in the Vietnam War is going on, and there was a tremendous need for medics, unfortunately, because medics were a target. And that you find yourself sent off to the Navy Hospital Corpsman school because you had an interest in medicine through dental, and find yourself plopped into Vietnam. It really happens kind of that way, doesn't it?
Well, as they will put it, the needs of the service are greater than the needs of the individuals.
Oh, you heard that line a few times, I suspect.
I even tell it now.
Well, you find yourself, and life isn't defined by one act, but in this instance, it's a series of acts that led to this lifetime that you have. In May of 1968, during an ambush in Quang Tri Province, you had to repeatedly expose yourself to enemy fire to treat those wounded Marines who didn't have room for you before. And it's in that action, that firefight, that an enemy grenade is thrown into you and some other Marines. You instinctively jump on the jump on the grenade to save the Marines, but maybe jumping a Marine would be good too. Jump on the grenade, and by miracles of miracles, it doesn't detonate, it's a dud. And you have the opportunity to throw it away and get back to the duty and responsibility of helping the wounded. As you think back on it now, 50, 60 years, what the hell were you thinking?
Well, let me correct the record going forward. When I jumped on it, I was just a little out of my reach. I grabbed it and pulled it up under my chest. And then the good Lord told me, he says, "Boy, you're not too smart. Get rid of that thing." And I rolled over and I threw it out of the bomb crater. And in doing so, it went off. It was not a dud.
Oh, okay.
So I, calmly arose because my pants were full of it. And I continued to work because that was not my only incident with a hand grenade. I'd been in contact with 2 others prior to that. So I had some false bravery associated with handling it. If somebody threw an M80 firecracker in a group, everybody would try to run away from it. They wouldn't try to pick it up, Well, I had a grenade come in and hit me in the helmet and fell to my legs because I was standing on my knees. And not being a Marine, I didn't stick it in my pocket as a souvenir. I was able to consciously said, let's get rid of that thing. I picked it up and I threw it away. Well, so then when I had an opportunity to think I could do the same thing the second time, that's when I took the action to reach for it, pull it under my chest, and then roll over and throw it away.
Well, that's part of being young and dumb, right?
Well, I questioned that a lot, and I thought, well, why didn't the Marines see me throw it away? Because they said that I just left it laying there so that it would go off any minute, or somebody would kick it or something. Come on. And so the rest of the story, if Paul Harvey was here, he would tell you that I was able to throw it away because they buried their heads and did not see the action that I took.
Well, and for our veteran radio listeners, we're talking to Don Ballard, who was a Navy corpsman in Vietnam and is telling this true story. I'm now looking at your Medal of Honor citation, which says, quote, "He calmly arose from his dangerous position and resolutely continued his determined efforts," close quote. I bet you arose calmly, right?
Well, my pants was full of shit. I couldn't get up very quick. I'd already defecated on myself, and so I had to slowly raise.
Well, again, these are human stories, and we all can react to them, and we can all be impressed by what you did instinctively, maybe with a little bravado. And as I say, this leads to ultimately receiving the Medal of Honor, which was presented to you by President Richard Nixon in May of 1970. One of the things we like to ask Medal of Honor recipients is to reflect on that ceremony. Most of us, maybe we see a snapshot. Today you might see a little, video of a ceremony. But there's a lot of stuff that's going on, and the recipients always have kind of an interesting, oh, you didn't see this behind the scenes. What do you remember from that ceremony back in May of 1970?
Well, prior to me experiencing that, you witnessed it on television. It was a one-on, one-off ceremony, like one or two guys would get the medal. But there was 12 of us that day, and we took up the whole room, and he walked around to us. We didn't have to go to him. And so he would put the medal on us individually at where we were standing with our families. So that's the kind of a behind-the-scenes effort that that you don't normally see. There was representation from all of the branches: Army, Navy, Marines, Air Force.
And you probably saw more brass in that room than you'd seen the whole time in service.
100%. All the chiefs of staff, all the 4 stars. It was pretty impressive. But then after you've dealt with the President of the United States, these 4 stars seem a little less impressive.
Was your family able to attend?
Yes, the official photograph includes my family, and I like to tell it because I showed up in an Army uniform, and that admiral says, that boy is not going to get a Navy medal and an Army uniform. Right. And so the official photograph of me with the president, I'm wearing somebody else's uniform, and he's walking around out there naked.
See, there's that little bit of back room you don't know about unless you talk to the guy who was there. You continued on after getting out of active duty Navy in February of 1970, and that the ceremony is a few months later in May of 1970. But you decided to go into the Kansas Army National Guard and have a long career beginning in the Medical Service Corps. Tell us a little bit about why you continued on and that service where you ultimately retired with the rank of colonel.
Well, it's easy to identify with the veterans that walked through that walk is that we were not welcomed home. It was a very dark time in this country. And, none of us felt welcomed home. We were not allowed to wear our uniforms off base. We would initiate a riot or a fight. Somebody would always be picking on the uniform people. And any service person got so bad that we were not allowed to wear our uniform off base. And so, that's a negative connotation that caused us to have even more anxiety because, we thought we were doing the job that our government wanted us to do because none of us volunteered to go kill people or to die for our country. We were ordered there by the politicians and by our government. So, we felt really bad when we came home and received the terrible, just unbelievable bad reaction from the public. And we were the problem. We weren't part of the solution. So saying all that, I got out of the military. I had a wife and 2 kids prior to going to Vietnam, and I had them afterwards for a period of time. I was pretty well messed up. My head wasn't where it needed to be. I was wounded 8 times and I killed 6 Vietnamese soldiers. and 3 of them was with my knife. And, so how do you expect me to come home and be normal? And even today, I wrestle with the thoughts of taking somebody's life. And you just don't stab somebody that's holding their gun. You have to wrestle them to the ground and kill them, and make sure they're dead before you get up off of them. So it was an experience that I wish I never had. But I got it, so I got to deal with it. So the reason I'm getting to answer your question about why I went back in was I needed treatment. I recognized that my wife and I were not getting along, and she was afraid of me. She feared for the kids, and so she wanted to get away from me, which today I don't blame her a bit because I was messed up. But I felt that I wanted to stay around people that at least understood me and why I was acting the way I was, because the civilians don't have a clue what the military families have to go through. They don't walk in our shoes, so they don't experience, and they have no clue as to what the reaction, cause and effect, the follow through with PTSD. And of course, PTSD did not surface until much later. That was undiagnosed mental challenge. I'm not even going to call it a mental, I don't know what to call it. But it was, at time, nobody else knew what to call it. We were screwed up, and that's why everybody was down on the Vietnam veteran, because it was a jungle warfare that we had never fought before. You didn't know who your enemy was sometimes. And the elephant grass over there was so tall, he could reach out and stab you or cut your head off without you even knowing he was there. And then we're in the jungles of North Vietnam, up on the hills, on the mountainsides, and it was a different quality of life. And I want to stop here and say that if you talk to 10 different Vietnam vets, you'll have 10 or 9 different stories because of the geographics and because of the enemy that they fought. We didn't have any villagers up in the mountain. I never saw a rice paddy. I don't have the same experiences as a guy down in the lowlands or clear down south in the rice paddy zone. I don't have those experiences, and they don't have mine.
Right.
So that's what's important, to back up and look at everybody's experience, because we all, as individuals, deal with it on an individual level. And so I deal with my tragedies different than you would, or another Marine would,
And getting back involved with the Army National Guard created a space where there were other guys who could kind of relate to what you went through, what they went through, and I think you've mentioned, you were able to get some health care and attention on some of these issues.
100% right. And even there's active duty guardsmen, so I could join the National Guard and still be on active duty. So I applied for active duty orders, and I spent a lot of time on active duty as a National Guard man.
One of the things that, thank you for being so candid about the transition, because even today, guys transition, men and women transition out of the military, and people don't recognize how difficult that is based on what they maybe did or where they were posted. But life goes on, right? And I think I read somewhere that you were, for a while, worked with the Kansas City Fire Department in a medical technician role, and ultimately became very active as a funeral director in that industry. Tell us a little bit about that civilian side.
Okay, well, I tried to adapt and overcome, and that's what the military, they try to train you to be a better person, a better man, in my case. And some leaders would hand you a straw and say, "Here, suck it up," deal with it. And of course, that may or may not have worked for some people. And depending on the individual's challenges as dealing with things, that might have worked and might not have. So my whole concept was, since I was maybe 5, 6, 7 years old, I've been in a uniform in scouting, and I've stayed in a uniform clear until my retirement as a public servant, as somebody as a caregiver. I travel in my own circles of influences to help other people. I'm not about myself. I have no ego. When I'm asked where I got the medal, I say I bought it at Walmart. That's just, it breaks. I have post-traumatic stress humor.
Oh, there's a line I haven't heard before. That's great. I think that's a good way to deal with it. And let's take that Medal of Honor, Walmart Medal of Honor, for a moment. What life lessons do you think you've learned having? And because some say it's a great privilege, but it's a real burden to wear the medal. What life lessons do you think you have learned and try to pass on as a Medal of Honor recipient?
Well, leading up to that question, which should be, everybody that walks up to me wants to ask me, how'd you get the medal? What'd you do? Why are you a war hero? First of all, I don't think I'm a war hero. I just did my job the best I could. Secondly, is I didn't plan for a thing, and there's no training on how to be war hero.
Right.
There's no training on how to jump on a hand grenade. And there's just no training or preparation that people can prepare for to do what life challenges cause. We don't know what we're going to do until the time that we're tested.
And that, I think, and that sort of, you were, again, once they put that medal around your neck, though, you get tested a whole lot more, don't you?
I do, because they want me to relive that worst day of my life. I spent the majority of my time trying to forget the challenges and the fears, and I was afraid a lot of the time in Vietnam. And what motivated me was, even when I was wounded 8 different times, each time I realized somebody else depended on me to live. And so I couldn't just lay there and not do something. I had to get up out of my safe place and run to where the guy was wounded, knowing that the enemy knew where he was or he wouldn't have gotten shot. And that's how most corpsmen got killed, was being the next duck in the row to get shot. So I didn't want to be a target. But if I did my job, I couldn't defend myself. They issued me a .45 before I went to the field, no magazine and no bullets. I said, what the heck am I going to do with this? He said, and the supply sergeant said, well, listen, Doc, if you feel like you need a weapon, there'll be plenty of them on the ground 10 minutes after the first firefight. And he was right. So I never carried a weapon except to fit in. If you're walking past a sniper, let me say that again. I never really carried a weapon to kill anybody. I carried weapons to blend in as not being somebody of a target, because the only people that don't carry weapons are the leaders, somebody important. So I wanted to blend in. I carried weapons, rifles, only because I wanted to blend in and not become a target.
Yeah, they were looking for officers and medics. That was the instructions. And as I say, carrying the medal, wearing the medal is a burden in itself, and that's having to relive that bad day. But also because people expect you to be a certain way, act a certain way, have a certain set of knowledge, maybe from life experiences. But you've remained active in a lot of different organizations, and I want to make sure we get a chance to talk about one of those that you're actively involved in, which is Triumphant Spirit Foundation. Tell us a little bit of what led you to that, and tell us about the organization.
Well, as a caregiver and a patient advocate, and veterans would come to the clinics and get treated for their post-traumatic stress or traumatic brain injury, their TBI. You know, they would have some kind of physical, mental, and emotional challenge, and we would treat them for whatever the needs were, and then they'd go home, and then they relapsed. You know, if they had a poor life and they didn't have a sense of purpose, they had no will to live, and they just hanging on by strings, and they come to us looking for help, and we did the best we could. They're doing the best they can now, but that's not enough. So, it works temporary, and then you got to go back home. And so our whole concept now is I discovered this ham radio. It's called amateur ham radio. It's the emergency broadcast system of the federal government. It existed before cell phones, and it'll exist after.
Right.
And in the event there was a medical or any kind of emergency, then the cell phones go away, and the only thing we have is the amateur ham radio. So I found that to be very interesting, very much fun. And I thought, well, why not get the veterans that are suicidal or mentally challenged and emotionally challenged, get them involved and have them treat themselves and mental issues without anybody being judged. There's no judgmental conditions. Nobody knows you're even disabled.
Yeah, as you say, this is radio, ham radio, which has a big following, across the world. And at times of disaster, whether it be hurricanes or floods or fires, ham radio is the way in which emergency services communicate. So it does have a higher purpose. That's very interesting. And so if you go to triumphantspiritfoundation.org, you're building out a website at the moment for this activity, and people can find out more about it there.
Yes, we're adjusting and changing the website to talk more about the ham radio than we did about the funerals. And the whole purpose there is that we want to treat somebody before they need a funeral.
Sure. And I didn't mention this, but I should, because I think this is an important aspect, telling you a lot about Don and some of his work. He has worked for years making sure that veterans, unclaimed and indigent veterans, get proper burials and funeral services. And I think every community ends up, maybe it's once a year, maybe it's twice a year, some post shows up and says, hey, you got a bunch of unclaimed veteran bodies here or remains in the morgue or the funeral home. Let's make sure they get properly buried. And those kinds of stories always move me. And the fact that you worked doing that says a lot about you as well, Don.
Well, thank you. It's, I went back to school at the age of 60 to become a funeral director out of need. I have never made a dime with it. I don't care. It's not my job. It's my passion, and I don't charge anything. I do what I can do for the veterans. I raise money through the nonprofit to pay for the veterans that are indigent or don't qualify for benefits.
Well, certainly a worthy cause. You've done Navy Corpsmen proud. You've done the Army National Guard proud. We really appreciate the time that Medal of Honor recipient Don Ballard of Missouri has spent with us, and we hope to see him this fall when he's in Detroit for the Congressional Medal of Honor Society convention. Don, I appreciate the time you've given us today. Yeah, this fall, the Congressional Medal of Honor Society will host its annual convention in Detroit, September 29th through October 3rd. This will be the largest gathering of living Medal of Honor recipients. The event focuses not so much on them just sharing their stories or promoting their individual causes, but the value of Medal of Honor, such as commitment, integrity, courage, sacrifice, citizenship, and patriotism. Veterans Radio probably has done more radio interviews with Medal of Honor recipients than any other platform around. And we want you to maybe check out the convention website that's upcoming. Go to medalofhonordetroit.com. And if you want to know more about any particular Medal of Honor recipient, going all the way back in time, you can go to the Congressional Medal of Honor Society site, which is cmohs.org. After a few words from sponsors, we're going to have a fun conversation with a Navy veteran who is known as the Flat Top King. If you got a Blackstone, if you're griddle cooking, he's the guy you want to listen to.
Military veterans touch everyone's life. I'm guessing right now you're thinking of a veteran, a close friend, relative. Maybe it's you. Even the toughest of us sometimes need help, but don't know where to turn for support. You don't need special training to help a veteran in your life. Even small actions can make a world of difference. If you know a veteran in crisis, please call the Veterans Crisis Line, 800-273-8255. 800-273-8255. A message from the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs.
If you have a VA claim denied by the Board of Veterans' Appeals, contact Legal Help for Veterans at 1-800-693-4800. They're experts in handling cases before the U.S. Court of Appeals for Veterans Claims. Their number again, 1-800-693-4800.
We want to welcome to Veterans Radio today a Navy veteran that you're going to get a kick out of and you're going to learn how to be a better cook out of. Neal Williams, a.k.a. the Flat Top King, welcome to Veterans Radio.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Well, those of you who are listening in on Veterans Radio here, you might get the idea that, geez, he sounds like he's maybe from the South. So Neal, where'd you grow up and where's home?
Knoxville, Tennessee, right on the base of the Smoky Mountains.
You know, how did a nice kid from there end up in the Navy?
Truth be told, we went into the buddy program. So two of my best friends, we all played sports together growing up, and one of them got into the, I don't remember exactly the term, the CV program, which was like a local for the reserves. And he got into it really big. And then he knew for a fact that he wanted to join. And then my best friend, my other one, was like, hey, I'm all aboard. And so we had a Navy recruiter come to the school. And when I was leaving lunch with my best friend, we stopped in because he had already made contact with him. And he's out there doing a spill and all that stuff. And at that time, I already knew that cooking was a part of my DNA. It was just a part of my passion, a part of my love. And I'll never forget, he reached over and he goes, dude, what would you ever do? Throw a frozen hot dog in case we got invaded? You know, or something like that. Like, we need to fight them off with a spatula. Needless to say, the recruiter did not have a hard job. All three of us wanted to go. We all went. And as they say, the rest is history.
So you went in right after high school, I take it?
Yes, sir.
And what year would that have been?
2001.
And you mentioned it, and I think this is really important because it fits into your Navy career and now the influencer that we're going to talk to, cooking. Cooking's in your DNA. Why is cooking in your DNA?
You know, I think everybody just is born with a passion, whether they do it for a job or do it for a hobby. You know, a lot of people enjoy outdoors, whether it be hunting, fishing. A lot of people enjoy XYZ. So I would say that I don't know. I just feel like I'm truly blessed to be able to live in the cooking aspect without having to be in the restaurant aspect. You know, the restaurant business is extremely hard. Nights, mornings, you know, you name it. But as you mentioned, the social media aspect has really changed the way a lot of people look at jobs And I just look at it like I was just in it at the right time. So cooking has always been my passion. A lot of things led up to this, and here we are today. But yeah, I remember one quick story. Literally, I would come home from school, and you had really a few options. You didn't have all the digital media you have today. You just had cable. But I was ingrained and tuned to Two Fat Girls. That was a cooking show, or Two Fat Ladies. East meets. I mean, the very original.
The two fat girls is high schools. We can't talk about that.
No.
Stay with the two.
They were from England, and I just absolutely just gravitated towards it. And cooking, I remember I learned how to caramelize onions from Julia Child, and not personally, obviously on TV.
Right.
So I go to my stove, and I was about 10 years old. Not really old enough to control the stove, but old enough to understand like it was on and all that stuff. So I got onions cut up. I put it in the pan, and I was frustrated that my onions did not get quote-unquote caramelized. To me, caramelized meant like sugary, because they're talking about sugars and all that stuff. So here I am dumping about a pound of brown sugar.
Oh, geez.
And my grandmother raised me, and she comes in and just absolutely just wants to bark at me. And it is burnt, smoke alarms going off. And I can always say that was my first true culinary experience of like, I just wanted to caramelize onions. I saw it on TV. I saw the impact. It sounded good, and it completely butchered it.
Well, that's part of cooking is experimenting, and sometimes you succeed, and sometimes you say, I can do that better or different next time. So as you went into the Navy, did you go in under a contract that said, okay, you're going to be a cook, or
yes,
how did you work that in, because that was your passion?
Oh, very easily. To be a cook, you barely have to. All you have to do is pass the ASVAB. It wasn't like I was a scholar to begin with, so there wasn't a lot of pressure on that. I knew I wanted to be a cook. Went in as a cook. Boot camp, we're all three together, and then one of my best friends went to the Air Department. So I think he went to a training before he ended up at Virginia Beach, and then my other best friend was undecided. So he was a bosun's mate, but there's a certain term for it. Anyways, he didn't go to A school. He went straight to the fleet. So he was in front of me. So after boot camp, I knew that I had to go to culinary school, and that put me in San Antonio, Texas. I was able to, whoever got top of their class was able to pick their destination. So whatever destination was open, and lo and behold, I got to pick the USS Nassau. It is a decommissioned ship now, but it was based in Norfolk, Virginia, and my other friend was already on there as a bosun's mate, and so I picked that so we could reunite again, and pretty easy transition, as they say.
So cooking volume in the Navy is a lot different than any of us have ever experienced at home, although some of us, like myself, have eaten that food that you guys cooked in volume. So tell us a little bit about culinary school. That's not the same as the Culinary Institute in New York or even a community college culinary arts program. But what kind of training did you get?
Yeah, the bare minimum for a AFRS, all these acronyms I don't remember, Armed Force Recipe System, is based out of 100 portions. So on the USS Nassau, we would feed anywhere between 1,200 to 1,700 people daily, while we were at sea and we're fully loaded with Marines, probably up to 3,000. So you might learn how to make an omelet on a griddle in culinary school. We actually shared the cooking base with the Air Force, because that was our home base for recruiting and all that stuff. So a lot of our chow was the same thing. You learn the same recipes, but bulk, you don't get a chance to learn bulk until you get a chance to learn it. Our copper pits were our best friends, where you can the tubs are so big you take a bath in them. Griddles are stretched as far as you could see, and they call them grills. Ovens, I specifically remember that our ship had 32 ovens, 16 across, 16 double stacked, and there would be times where every single oven was completely full. So
and one of the other things you have to learn is how to feed that volume of people, that volume of food. It may not be simultaneously, but it's all got to get out in a certain time parameter.
You know, a lot of people think it's about cooking. I always go back and say I also had, there's called a job in the cooking world called Jack of the Dust, JOD. So we had a whole team designated every single day just to break out the provisions needed to be able to cook the food. That was a whole job in itself because that just takes all day, especially when you're underway and loaded with Marines. One quick story: when we deployed, we packed our ship so thick and so full that the very first thing that you opened up at the freezer was the first thing that we served in the morning. It didn't matter if it was not lobster tails, but it did not matter. We had chicken nuggets, we had French fries, we had eggs ready, and whatever we opened the door with for the first about week was the only thing that we served.
Yeah, it's a logistics.
So yeah,
it's just about logistics at that point, and how do you crack that many eggs, or how do you get that much stuff out of the freezer?
Just throwing out like 400 to 800 pounds of chicken. Like you got to break it out of the freezer, you got to thaw it out properly, you got to worry about sanitation, you got to sheet tray it, you got to season it, you got to bake it, you got to hold it. Yeah, so it's not just the cooking. There's a lot of things that go in before that person comes through the chow line and just gets that first bite.
And how long were you on ship? How long did you serve?
I served the 4-year commitment, all 4 years on the Nassau. Really quick story. I really had some seniors that were very impressionable on me. I've always looked up to them. Still to this day, I've lost contact with them, but I'll never forget the way they treated me. One was the Filipino, which was a Master Chief, Senior Chief. He made Master Chief. Another one was a warrant officer who was previously on presidential duty. They saw something in me that I didn't see in myself, but that's what happens when you have senior mentorship. They wanted to pull me from the general mess. At early stage, I got a chance to be in the chief's mess. From there, I graduated and went to the wardroom. And then one time I was controlling not on the wardroom. I was a captain's cook and controlling the chief's mess at the same time.
And for those who aren't in the Navy, what he's doing is they're moving them up through the pay grades, if you will, up through the ranks, so that the better cooks, the captain, the admiral's getting the best cook. The guy who's just enlisted for a month is getting that 3,000 scrambled eggs. So that's a real testament to what they saw in their mentorship in you to move you to the chief's mess, and then the wardroom, and then the captain's mess. All of that are internal attaboys, weren't they?
Yeah, the biggest crown of my jewel was I got a chance to interview for the White House. Master Chief Powell came down. We interviewed in Norfolk. And at the time, I do not know. You got to remember, it's been 20 years. At the time, I was the youngest person to ever be selected to cook at the White House. Matter of fact, I was so young, I didn't have enough rank. And they basically told me, since I was a single sailor with no dependents, that they physically could not pay me enough to live in D.C. They wanted me, but I could not go up there.
Yeah, absolutely. You would have been dead broke trying to make that rent check and food check. Well, you get out, you do your time. You had an interesting set of experiences. You learned a lot, it sounds like. What does Neal Williams say to himself, well, what do I do now?
Well, one of the reasons why I got out is exactly what you just said. So after the White House, my orders got submitted. Well, Camp David called. Camp David called and said, hey, you still have to interview, but I wanted to see why your name is kind of red flag with the green check mark to say. So I went up there to Camp David, interviewed, and they said, we can get you up here right away because you don't have to worry about the cost of living where Camp David is located versus you can in D.C. Waited on the orders. All this was after 9/11. So I was in culinary school during 9/11. So you can imagine the pressure of the military at the time was completely different, pretty close to what it is now. There's a difference between when you're actively engaging versus everything going smooth. But after 9/11, it changed, as you know. And so I was waiting on my orders to be cut. And the next thing you know, the Pentagon called and said, hey, we see your order submitted. Now you've made rank. If you come up here, at the time it was Donald Rumsfeld. And they said, we need one more person to fill the position. Went up there and did an Iron Chef competition with the 5 other applicants. I was able to win that. I was able to win the job. Waited on the orders, but then I just timed out. So what does Neal Williams do? I applied to the Culinary Institute of America because I knew that I wanted to do the cooking. And
that was the name I couldn't remember. I couldn't remember CIA. It's Culinary Institute of America in New York. There you go. Yep. Thank you.
And I was right there. Was at a pivotal moment, and looking back, people will say, "What's the biggest crossroad?" And that is it. I felt like at 22 years old, when I was getting out of the Navy, I felt like I'd already done my 4 years, and I was already behind the 8 ball. So I decided not, even though I got accepted, I decided not to go to college, and we started a little franchise in Knoxville, and that kind of how it kind of went. But I look back, I'm like, man, at 22 years old, I already thought that I was behind the 8 ball to go to college at the most prestigious culinary institute in the world. So that's kind of like the defining moment right there.
Well, and that's again where now you can offer mentorship and guidance to younger guys and gals. Maybe you didn't have it when you needed it, but life's a series of unplanned adventures, and so what becomes the next adventure?
My in-laws had a chance to retire early. I'm extremely close to my in-laws. On a whim, it's almost like putting a dart on a dartboard. They wanted to get out of Knoxville and pursue other interests. But they didn't want to be close enough to Knoxville to where Knoxville always pulled you back. Lo and behold, after like a 6,000-mile road trip, they picked out several ranches. And it could have been anything from a marina to a chicken farm to a horse farm to you name it. But they wanted our core family, to stay together. Next thing you know, we ended up in the middle of the southeast Wyoming. My daughter, to put it in perspective, was born about an hour and a half away to the closest hospital, which was also the closest Walmart. So it was in the middle of nowhere. So we did that for 4 years. And at the time, I had a chance to drive 45 minutes south. You'll never believe this. And one of America's unsung heroes of like the best steakhouses in America. In a town of 63 people, it's called Miners and Stockmans. And it's historically, the claim of fame is it's Wyoming's oldest bar. And the original bar back was actually made, if I'm not mistaken, in England and shipped over here. It's got an original bullet hole in there. There's steps that go down that are now covered with like the actual floor that has like a speakeasy back in the when they had the alcohol prohibition and all that stuff. Just crazy, but just a fantastic steakhouse. So I got to cook there for a while, and then ultimately we made the decision to come back to Knoxville. And once again, I was forced in a pivotal moment. I knew for a fact I love food, but also knew for a fact that I love my SEC football on Saturdays.
There you go.
And my daughters were so young that they didn't have a chance to understand what Dad was doing at night. So when I would go to work at night, they would already go in bed. Well, I would come home and I would sleep, and then my youngest daughter would end up going to school while I was asleep. Next thing you know, I'd wake up, I'd go to work, she's still at school, and it's this vicious cycle. And so it wasn't long till I realized that when I came back to Knoxville that, I just didn't want to be in that restaurant style to where I missed the family and worked every single week.
It's a very hard life to be a chef or a cook or a server in a traditional steakhouse restaurant. So I fully understand your decision here.
I came home. My dad had a little business. I helped him out. Him and another friend were able to give me enough business to kind of get into it. Next thing you know, I'm delivering bread, just like you see with those people with the bread racks inside the grocery stores. And I did that for 6 solid years. During that process, that's a 7-day-a-week job. Like, you are a sole proprietor, and you make what you want out of it.
You've got a route to run, and it's yours to run it. Yep.
Yeah. Up in the morning, sometimes it's 11 o'clock, sometimes 12 o'clock, sometimes majority of the time it was 2 o'clock in the morning. You're waking up. So we did that, and then that it starts calling again. The cooking. I always cook for family. COVID happens, as we know that's probably. Besides 9/11, it's just how it shapes America as today. And I was didn't even know what YouTube was about. And I was online looking at YouTube, and because there was nothing open, you couldn't do anything, So just online, and I realized there was this whole genre, this whole world, this whole internet space of how-to videos. And to be honest with you, I saw a video that had 1.4 million views, and it was seasoning cast iron. And I knew for a fact the way they did it was they never even got the oil up to a smoke point to be able to season the cast iron. I also knew that the oil they were using, they mounded, and I mean globbed on there where there's so much residual coconut oil that they created like a white streak, a white mound over the cast iron. And if you truly get in a cast iron cooking, you know that, like thinner layers are better, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, man, after 1.4 million views to tell somebody how to do something wrong, imagine if you can tell them to do something right.
Well, and this is where the story really gets interesting because Neal Williams, this Navy cook, decides, and it's probably incremental, but I want folks to go to theflattopking.com and check out his website. Go to YouTube, where you've got 250,000 followers, where you show them every recipe and way to cook on a griddle. You've just really ridden a wave here, but when you started, that couldn't have been what you were thinking you'd end up doing for a career, I don't think.
Matter of fact, it wasn't even called the Flat Top King. At first, when I started, it was called the Charcoal King, because I've always enjoyed cooking with cast iron and open fire. But what I didn't know is exactly what you said. I never intended this to be a business. I never intended it to be the way of life. It was just something that you saw. I'm like, if they can do it, I can do it. But what I didn't know was everything that I didn't know. I didn't know how to film. I didn't know how to edit. I didn't know how to keep your attention. I didn't know anything. And matter of fact, I didn't even know at the time that you could look that stuff up on social media.
Well, and you've got to go to his website. You got to go to his website. You got to go to his YouTube. He's got Instagram, because it's so professionally done, and that takes proper photography, proper videos, sound, lighting. What, do you got a cast of 100 here? How many people do this for you?
You're going to be amazed. I've been in it for almost 6 years, like 5.5 years, and we've shot everything through a single iPhone. We only have one boom mic that attaches to a little handheld thing that we just got about 6, maybe 8 months ago. So you figure I was in YouTube for basically 5 years before I realized that when I was editing my videos, even though I was recording in 4K, I did not know I was not uploading in 4K. So then I had to completely relearn how to edit on another program. Every single video I've ever edited has been through free software, whether it be through my iMac with iMovie, and now we've upgraded to DaVinci, but it's still the free one. But there are times, yeah, you're right. It's a learning curve. We actually probably 2 weeks ago just pivoted as well, because you learn as you grow. You see things you want to implement, and I think that's fair in life and business. You have to keep moving forward.
And you've got a great partner in this. We talked before we started recording, and again, pre-COVID, we would never have done this interview on Zoom so that I can use it and edit it. But I get a kick out of your technical advisor. Tell us about
her. She's been my thick or thins. We're high school sweethearts. So I was a year above her in high school. When I got stationed in Norfolk, then she found a college closer to the Norfolk area. She attended that, so we're together there. Crazy story, backtracking a little bit. So the day that she reported for her freshman year, the same day, the next day I deployed for a 9-month deployment.
Oh, boy.
Yeah. So the idea of her going to college close me
didn't work out.
Didn't even happen. Of course, and all that stuff. But that's how life happens. But yeah, we've been together since high school, and she's been with me on this crazy ride, and we kind of just feed off of each other. She has her strengths or her weaknesses, and I feel like she does not cook at all. So when I say weaknesses, there's not many of them, but one of them is her cooking ability. Thank goodness I can step in for that one. But other than that, she's probably more brains behind the operation than what people would think, and it's because of her. I think that's where we're at today.
Well, as a influencer now in griddle cooking, give people a little insight into, it's just not a quick 3-minute or 12-minute or 15-minute filming of you cooking on the griddle. I mean, there's all kinds of prep time and post-editing time. Give folks some sense of how it all comes together.
Yeah, that's a tough one. So there's a lot of different variations. I do know this. What I try to do is try to teach.
Well, we really appreciate the time that you've given to Veterans Radio today to give us a glimpse into what a Navy chef goes through and how life has taken you into a direction that since COVID, before COVID, none of us could even imagine. Neal, again, I thank you for your time today on Veterans Radio.
Thank you so much.
So I encourage you to go to his website, The Flat Top King, and check it out, or his YouTube channel. You'll really enjoy it. I also want to remind you that Veterans Radio annual fundraiser, Radio on the River, will occur October 11th from 1 to 4 p.m. at Freedom River in Brighton, Michigan. This is when we really need you to step up and be a donor, a sponsor. Go to the website, veteransradio.org. Look, you're out of state. We're all around the world. Doesn't matter where you are. Send in a donation to keep us going. This is not a big operation. We've got so many volunteers that keep us going, and a great board that keeps us in a good direction. But if you like these stories about successful Navy veterans who turn into YouTube cooking influencers, or you like this chance to hear from Medal of Honor recipients about what life is like, then you've got to keep us on the air. You got to keep helping us out. So go ahead and send in that $20 or that $40 or that $100 because you get more entertainment value and more educational value than that from Veterans Radio. That's certainly true. I mentioned the website. It's veteransradio.org. So it's tax deductible. You can also follow us on Facebook and YouTube. Many of our podcasts are there, posted every week. So something new all the time, something educational that we're pretty sure you're going to enjoy. And these are the kind of stories Dale and I and Shelley like to bring to you. And we always appreciate any information you might have about somebody we ought to talk to. So until next time on Veterans Radio, you are dismissed.